morning, everybody. It's Dr. Karen. I wanted to pick up where I left off yesterday because in yesterday's video, I shared a little bit about work-life balance, why it's so hard for SLPs to have it, and why, if you want to feel more fulfilled and restored in your life, striving for a work-life balance isn't actually what you want. So I shared a little bit about something else that's called counterbalance. So you're going to want to check out that video that I recorded yesterday to learn a little bit more about counterbalance. But I'll give you the quick and dirty version right now, and then get into some specific examples that can apply to what you do as a therapist. So counterbalance is when we try to get balance in our lives. A lot of times, if we take that literally, what we're doing is just overcommitting to multiple things at once and allowing our attention to be divided so that we're not very efficient at anything. So we can't really perform our best at any one task. And so counterbalance is simply a way of intentionally letting ourselves get out of balance, meaning that we are putting certain things aside temporarily and focusing on one thing at a time for the purpose of actually helping us get more out of our time and actually using less energy, because trying to multitask is actually really inefficient, and it only leads to burnout, because when we're trying to toggle back and forth between a lot of different things and a lot of different priorities in our lives at once, what happens is that we lose a lot of energy in that transition time, and it's easy to get off track. And then not spending enough time devoted to one area at a time simply makes us not able to really get into a good flow. So the example that I talked about yesterday, and again, the concept of this is not work-life balance, but rather counterbalance, meaning that instead of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all the time, we're going here for a while, and then we're coming back and we're going here for a while, so that we are using our attention more efficiently and being fully committed to fewer things instead of half-assing hundreds of things at once, which a lot of us tend to do, especially because culturally, the idea of being busy and stressed and overwhelmed is almost glorified. And it's actually not what you want if you want to be successful. So I talk a little bit about the rules of counterbalance. Again, I'll go through them really quickly. Rule number 1, separate work from life. Rule number 2, family and health are never ignored for work. Rule number 3, intentionally be out of balance some of the times in order to fully focus on one thing at a time. And rule number 4, don't stay out of balance too long. Obviously, putting one thing down for a time and focusing on another thing is good for a certain length of time, but it's possible to take it too far. So the goal of counterbalance is to find that happy medium between all of those things. Now, my personal example of counterbalance is something that I have shared in, again, yesterday I talked a little bit about how I was able to get through my doctoral program and my dissertation while having a full-time job, while actually the year that I got married and becoming a parent. So all of those things, again, I had to really apply counterbalance if I was going to get that done. But I wanted to share a couple other examples. Now, before I get to that, though, I wanted to mention as well, the reason that I'm able to offer information like this, free information on my Facebook page, is because I, through my website, have products and services for SLPs, where I help you to create systems in therapy so that you're more efficient. Particularly my area of expertise is language therapy. So I have several courses available for helping you create language therapy systems. And then also I've just opened a new program called SLP Learning Academy, where essentially what it is career coaching for SLPs, where I help SLPs to figure out how to create their dream career. So whether that be staying at their current job and just making the most of that, whether it be creating an additional income stream so that they can either leverage that for just having a better income, having more freedom, paying off their student loans or whatever, or whether that be a stepping stone to their next endeavor. So in the SLP Learning Academy, what we do is help you to examine all your options when it comes to your career and creating more income and impact in your life. And so we talk through a whole bunch of different things as far as what are your other options for being an SLP besides being a clinician? Is it ideal for you based on your personality to stay there and apply things like, again, like the concept of counterbalance to help you get more fulfillment and really be seen as a leader in that current position? Or do you want to move on to something else, get a different job, create a side hustle on the side, and eventually maybe start your business? Or do you want to figure out how to go back to school? So we talk about all those things and really how to get more out of your career and your life as an SLP and create that ideal situation. And again, one of the key concepts, obviously, the concept of counterbalance and work-life balance goes hand in hand with that. So I am able to offer free videos like this because I also have programs like SLP Learning Academy. So if you want to learn more beyond this video, all you need to do is I will add a link below this video to the sign up page to SLP Learning Academy, where you can learn how to enroll in the program that will help you to create a career in a life that fulfills you. So back to the concept of counterbalance. Again, yesterday I talked a little bit about how I applied this to going back to school. That was my journey as far as what enabled me to get to that next step. I absolutely recommend it. I loved it. I love school. I'm good at it. And it's something that is very fulfilling to me as a lifelong learner. However, that's not the only journey that you can take. There's a lot of people who are, they have their master's degree and they're able to develop their expertise and really find themselves in their career through other means. So I'm absolutely a proponent of continuing your education. That doesn't necessarily always need to be formal education. It could be. It was for me. But in order to be able to do that, you've got to do a couple things in your current job right now, which is to make the most of your time. Because if you are in a situation where you are kind of always trying to tread water and you're just staying in the same place, it's going to be really hard for you to put yourself in a situation where you can position yourself to make the most out of that position. Maybe for some people it might be a simple way of just creating different programs and initiatives in their current position, but some people might want to start going back to school or making some time for things on the side so that they can develop some additional income and experiences that are going to set themselves up for something else in the future. All of the people that I know who are, I would say, setting the curve on the salary statistics for SLPs and also enjoying their careers are people who have managed to be able to do this and be very strategic with their time. And they simply think about their time differently. So the thing is that you're not going to be able to do any of those things if you can barely keep your head above water. So that's why it was so important for me to be efficient at work. So I wasn't bringing it into all of those things. What it enabled me to do was to keep work at work and even do some things at work that were above and beyond what I was doing that were helpful for my job situation. And then also freed up some time and energy for me to focus on other things rather than having to take paperwork home and working 60 hours a week in a job that, had a definite cap as far as income and being able to move up. So some of the things that I did, one concept that was really key to me was the concept of batching. Now, again, it doesn't make sense to do this for every single task that you do as an SLP. But there are many times when we are task switching and we're not strategic about how we spend our time. And because of that, we end up not getting a lot done. And when we actually think about how we spent our time, we feel like we're always busy, but really we are not actually doing a lot. When we think about, okay, what did I actually accomplish today? It's not as much as we'd want. So when you batch, and I learned about this concept through a number of different productivity experts. One website that's very good for this is called Asian Efficiency. And they, on that site, they teach things like batching. So what you do, instead of doing a task a little bit at a time, over many sittings, you lump it together in all in one sitting. I absolutely had to do this for writing because it was very hard for me to get into a flow if I didn't allow myself to get in the zone. I would be kind of sitting there in front of my laptop and the words wouldn't come, and it's like where you just feel like you can't get over the hump and you're just sitting there staring at the blank screen. So for dissertation writing, that was key for me. Where it was also key for me was doing things like progress reports and then just evaluation reports and IEP. So anything like that, rather than trying to just do like this little section here and then this little section here, it would take me so long to figure out where I left off for any of those things that it actually made more sense for me to do it in big chunks. So I know an objection that a lot of people have is, well, I don't have time to like have full days to write IEPs or whatever. Well, I challenge you to get creative with your schedule. And this could mean, yes, coming in early, maybe one day a month or one day a couple times a month outside of your therapy time, or maybe having one day that you stay late. Or it could mean getting creative with your schedule. And no, we don't want to have these huge groups all the time. So maybe you have an alternative schedule for your evaluation weeks where you're still seeing your students, but maybe you have them in a bigger group that week, and know that those other 3-4 weeks or whatever, you are spreading your groups out a little bit more and you have less paperwork time, but maybe you condense that for some groups. So I did that often when I had kids who needed to be evaluated. Obviously, you need a block of evaluation time. Or when I needed to write up that evaluation, I would do that often, and I would just combine some groups. And again, I wouldn't do it all the time, but I did it to the extent that I allowed those students to, on the other weeks, really get good therapy. And it wasn't bad therapy when it was in the group setting. I would just change what we worked on so that it was more comparable and more feasible for a large setting. But when I did that intensive work, I did it during the weeks when I didn't have a lot of paperwork time. So the thing is that a lot of people think that they have to ask permission for things. And I adopted the mindset of ask for forgiveness, not permission. My administrators, and I did get to the point where they just trusted me to do my job. So they did not look over my shoulder and, try to see if I was doing what I said I was doing. And I had that same relationship with the teachers where they knew I was going to get their students for speech. And if I had some weeks where I had to combine, they were flexible with me. So yes, you do have to earn that trust and respect. And it does take some time, but when I got to that point, what I was able to do was have that flexibility where I would just do what I needed to do with my schedule and people didn't question it. And yes, there were a lot of times, and I think that there were times that, maybe administrators or supervisors might recommend that we do it a certain way, but they weren't necessarily saying like, you're going to get in trouble and I'm going to be following you around all day, seeing if you do it the exact way that I'm doing it or that I'm telling you to do it. So I would challenge you to really think about what you can do with the time that you have and what things you might think that you have to do and what things that you might be able to do. And again, adopt the ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And I know that there's a lot of guilt surrounding the making time for things like this, but what I always went back to when I was trying to figure out, am I doing the right thing and can I sleep at night knowing that I did whatever I did? Well, if I could honestly say that I was doing something that was in the students' best interests and I was meeting all of their needs, then I went with it. And I always had if somebody were to come back and ask me why I was doing what I was doing, which barely ever happened. I honestly cannot think of an example of when somebody said, why did you do your schedule this way or that way? Again, and that's because I had those relationships. So I challenge you to see what you can do with the time that you have and really question some of the stories you're telling yourself about, I can't do this, I can't do that with my schedule. You might be able to. And yes, there might be some unique situations where you really do have limited control, but I think that it tends to be the exception from the rule, because I know many people who have had these big caseloads and they were able to adopt this concept of batching where they were able to flex their schedule a little bit to make time for some of those things that cause a big headache. So again, batching has been huge for me as far as being able to get work done at work and opening up my time for future endeavors. There were a couple things, yes, that I didn't do it with, like Medicaid billing. I just did every day because the sessions were fresh in my mind. So when I had to do the documentation, it was easy for me to just take 5 minutes at the end of the day and just do that. Didn't require a lot of thinking and focus. And it was actually easy for me to do it that way rather than leaving it to the end of the semester. However, I know my colleagues preferred to batch it. So that's just one example. Again, that was kind of a personal preference. So you don't have to do it for everything. What I would recommend doing it for are those, think about, and again, this is something that I've heard about from places like Asian Efficiency when it comes to finding that balance, applying counterbalance to your life, is think about what your big frog is. And so they say, eat your frog first, meaning do the thing on your schedule that sucks the most first, if you possibly can. So I would say when it comes to counterbalancing and batching, think about what your frogs are. What are those frogs that you hate to eat, and those things might be a high priority. I didn't mind Medicaid billing that much. It didn't take that much time and energy. So I was fine just doing it a little bit at a time. Did not disrupt my schedule or cause me any additional transition times. It was just part of my routine that I could power through. But things like paperwork, that was more of a headache, and it cut into time outside of work that I could be working on other endeavors. So what I did for that was that was something that I chose to counterbalance and use to batch. So think about those things, see how you can apply that to your life, and see again how you can challenge the current stories you're telling yourself about the control that you have over your schedule and how you spend your time. I know it's possible because I was able to do it, and I know many other SLPs who are able to do it as well, who were able to go back to school, start businesses, start private practices, or even just do other endeavors outside of SLP. So again, we talk about, if you want to learn more about how to apply this to your unique situation, I welcome you to join us in SLP Learning Academy, my coaching program for SLPs, where I teach SLPs how to advance their career, make the most out of their current situation, and leverage their current skill sets and experiences to create additional income streams and to set themselves up for that next stage of that career, whether it be switching jobs, to a supervisor position that pays more and gives them more fulfillment and more responsibility, or whether that be setting something up on the side to possibly make a career transition to that, or whether that be just finding more fulfillment out of the situation that you're currently in and just exploring your options to see what else is in store for you. So to join SLP Learning Academy, again, I will share the link below this video, and I would love to see you in the members area so I can support you through creating that career that fulfills you. All right, thanks everybody for listening. We'll sign off for now.